Hello, everyone. My name is Andy Wong. Welcome to the Australian Lifestyle Investment Channel. In the past period of time, I have met different friends or heard from many different Hong Kong people. They all rush to arrive before April 30th when you go to Australia to renew your driver's license. You may have some friends who have already settled here, or they are planning to settle down in the near future. So what can you do to seize the time? Please pay attention. I will try my best to share something with you today, and so will I. How do they grasp the cases they come into contact with? From time to time, what he does will be added here and shared with everyone. So in this episode of Teaching Sharing, there is no investment advice, but it is recommended that you remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our videos and introductions to your friends. Since a lot of this episode is about personal experience sharing, if you have anything to add or any questions, you can leave a message for me to listen to. After April 30th, 2025, Hong Kong driver's licenses can't be exchanged without a test. In Australia, there are 3 categories for license exchange. The first is recognized countries, where testing systems are similar to Australia's, allowing direct exchange. The second is experienced drivers, including Hong Kong, where exchange is possible under specific conditions. The last category requires full testing. I'll explain those procedures later. Well, because of their examination system and the experience of the drivers, they believe it will be very similar to Australia, so they can go to Australia to change to another license plate without taking an examination. But what about the second category? It's the experienced driver status. It's scary. In fact, it comes from Hong Kong, so it's called It should be almost similar, and everyone will believe that it is okay. It is possible under certain conditions. And it has become an identity that is easier to change license plates. And finally, it is other countries, but it does not meet their requirements, and you have to re-examine all the procedures. Are there any procedures? I will talk to you again later. At this time, the impact this time may be on some cities or countries that are relatively similar to ours. In fact, except for Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea, etc., are all facing this situation. So what about this period of time? In fact, the people we come into contact with, whether they are Hong Kong people or even some Korean friends, are usually divided into 2 categories. One of them is the decision. I want to settle in Asia, so I have to seize some time and apply for a license plate as soon as possible, because it takes some time to go through some procedures. In addition, I have some friends, and I decided to go on a trip to check it out first. While Miles was applying for a license plate, he would stop by to visit different places and get acquainted with different knowledge or connections to make some plans for their future. Hey, that's why. It's actually possible. If you want to know the latest and most important information, that is, the most important information or the most complete information, of course you should have a habit of going to the service, that is, the NSW service website, or there is a lot of different information in it. For example, if I click on the NSW driver license, you will see that you can renew, transfer, etc. It may be the same as ours. It's related, right? And applying in different states like Victoria, you need to check the official data on their website. For an overview, firstly, to get a driver's license, fill out the license application form. Download forms from the website. It mentions various conditions. I can't cover every detail, but ensure your documents, like name and gender, are consistent. To get a driver's license, fill out the license application form. Download forms from the website. Ensure all your documents, like name and gender, are consistent. Fulfill at least one item from each list to verify identity. For example, include your passport, Hong Kong ID, or driver's license. So, what you will see this time is that he mentioned that he has some different conditions. Because it's so hard for me to learn all the details of the gender form. But at least, you have to remember some of the documents that you have here, and those are the names and genders that you have to remember, and those are the same. Continuing with this form, there are two lists. In each list, complete one item to verify identity. Include passport, HKID, or license. Also, bring visa letter for identity, whether for permanent residence or a temporary license. Have documents for safety. A bank statement or card verifies name. Address not needed, but important. Easier for newcomers to Australia. They might say, I can get a Medicare card, but are stuck without a bank account. Medicare card might not be sorted. Let him see. What kind of identity do you want? It's a permanent residence because it may be affected. After all, can it be used as a temporary residence for you? One situation is the situation of temporary license. So you should try to keep these things with you. I will feel safer. And if you have some Australian bank statements, your bank card will be better and more convenient. Having an address is important, but it can be easier to manage. For friends who have just arrived in Australia, they might have experienced something like this. They hear that they can get a Medicare card, but they find themselves stuck in a loop, or they haven't applied for a bank account yet, or haven't gotten other numbers. They might not even have their Medicare card sorted out yet, so it can be quite a hassle. In terms of information related to Australian banks, it's usually easier to obtain. I've noticed that many Hong Kong people who manage to get all these documents sorted out tend to have a smoother experience. They seem to have an easier time with the process. Also, regarding the TD320 document from Hong Kong, I think it's good to bring that along. Some people say it's necessary, while others say it's not, so it really depends on how it corresponds with the NSW requirements. Let's talk about the situation with the staff at the service center. Okay. Let's start by telling you that you are going to post all the documents. In fact, you can just walk in or make an appointment. Just go to a service center and stick around. In fact, it's a service center, which I call NSW for short. Center, that's right. Actually, they will go to the Hong Kong Transport Department to confirm your relevant records, and your name is in them, so you can usually see it. Hey, how fast is that time for them? It's fast. Hey, you can go and work on it in the morning and in the afternoon. I can talk to you already. I and the people in Hong Kong have confirmed your situation. So for the time being, I've heard. Usually we go to the third day. Okay, usually there will be people like this. Usually if it is during this time, I heard that usually everyone will go to Masonry or Castle Hill, and there are a lot of documents to be done in these places. So, they might be more familiar with the process. After that, they will decide whether you need any additional documents or related procedures. Once you receive that call, you can either schedule another appointment or just walk in directly to the NSW Public Service Center. Just make sure you have all the documents from before ready. Basically, they'll check your name, do a vision test, and take your photo. Then, you'll decide whether you want a 5-year or 10-year license. Of course, there are different fees for each option. Usually, people under 45 tend to go for the 10-year license, but it really depends on the individual. After you leave the center, you can expect your license to arrive in the mail within about 1 to 2 weeks. In Australia, this is usually a common procedure. Okay, after you have applied for a license. Many times we will have heard that Australia has a learner license, a Red P, a professional P1, and a 6P professional P2 license. Usually, what we want most every day is to get a full license. The license, you don't need to stick it on anymore. It's just a square plate that you can use on your car. Over here, you can see that they have clear guidelines. They explain that if your driving experience is less than 12 months, you'll get the Red P license. If you have between 12 months and 3 years, you'll get the Green P license. And if you have more than 3 years, you'll receive the full license, which we refer to as the unrestricted license, meaning it's the official driver's license. Hey, so I am drawing a picture for everyone to take a look at. Hey, what happens if I make a program for everyone to do it? If you are 25 years old or above, and have 12 months or more driving experience in Hong Kong, you usually do not need to take a road test or a written test. However, if they can see it, it will correspond to your valuable experience. If you have less than 3 years of experience, you may be given a P license, but if you have 3 years of experience or more, you may be granted a full license, which is normal. But if you're under 25, you might still need to take the written test and the road test. Depending on your experience, if you have less than 12 months, you'll get the red P license. If you have between 12 months and 3 years, you'll get the green P. And if you have more than 3 years, you'll get the full license. This is just a visual representation of the information I shared earlier. Okay, so during this period, if you submit the documents to the real system, you may be able to get your license. I heard many friends say, they all expected about 2 weeks. In fact, they usually do something like this during this period, whether you are already in Macau or not. Life in Asia is tight, and you will definitely settle down somewhere in the future. It may be a new place that was introduced to you at first, and there may be a lot of information or some knowledge that requires time to learn by yourself or go to explore. Yeah, usually what I see is that a lot of people will go to different suburbs to check out how convenient the area is for them or whether they like living in that neighborhood. If they have young kids, they might not only look at high schools, but also check out the primary school options. Some might even look into preschools in the area. Okay, so what? Hong Kong people usually go to the city, and many different places are as close as possible. When you first arrive, you may see different stations or different metro stations, so the app will be a common place, such as Eastwood, Cheswood, Limbao, Castle Hill, Ross Hill. These are all different places that more people have been trying to experience for themselves in recent years. So in fact, you can do it. What about taking advantage of it? Take some time to do some study tours. So if you have some friends who are themselves, maybe they have been doing business or have already started to figure out some tax matters. In fact, you can pay attention to it. Even if I filmed an episode, let everyone listen. In fact, there are some situations in Australia. In fact, it is better to know people than to read. So you may have some friends in the material world. In fact, you have some good accountants, even financial advisor, mortgage broker. These connections can even lead you to lawyers who can help you understand your situation better, allowing you to plan more effectively. I think it's important to know these people, not just for settling down in the future, but also for your everyday life and preparing for what's ahead. Yeah, so of course, if you're preparing for something, even if you're just getting to know some people in the industry, it might help shorten your waiting time. For example, if you're planning to land in early August, and you find out that a car you really want is arriving around the 2nd or 3rd week of August, you could potentially make a reservation in advance. So there are many situations like this. In addition to looking at housing and school, and buying your own food, you should actually seize some time to get to know different connections, so that you can accomplish things more smoothly. Okay, if some people decide, I came to Australia later and took the exam again, or learned to drive again, or it's just new, it's true. It's okay to learn to drive, because in fact, I screenshot all of this and this is service. On the NSW website, you will see a program. You go to apply. After all, you have a learner license. After that, you must have a P license, so you are now a service. As shown in Enter, you can actually go online and take knowledge tests. Then you can apply for your license. Just think about it. If you make your lock ball, it will save your driving experience. You may even ask your driving instructor to practice it with you. In fact, all this information is available on this website. If you really can't find it, let me know. I'll send another link. Okay, during this period of time, I often came into contact with different friends or some of my own personal experiences. In fact, Below I will share some common situations in FAQ 1, and many times there are some friends who may, if you have never learned how to drive. Of course, you will definitely see this road manual. In fact, Australia is a very multicultural place, so of course its original version is in English, but you will see that there are actually many websites. You can see different versions available with many languages represented. In Australia, Cantonese is one of those languages, so you'll find both traditional and simplified Chinese, as well as Korean and many other languages. You can refer to these resources. Even if you're supposed to get a full license, it's still worth taking a look at the handbook, especially if you're planning to learn to drive. Maybe you should consider whether you need to get to know an instructor who speaks the same language as you so that you can drive and learn more happily. Yes, and after all, some teachers are good, they are willing. Let's say, maybe the one next to you is learning to drive, but he can let you sit in the back seat and accompany him to class to feel what is going on, what are the local conditions like. If you have friends who know these instructors, I think that's really great. Okay, that's it. To explain what I'm talking about, what I need to look at is the road manual and some real-life experiences of friends who may be driving, which may be worth sharing. And the same thing, I think, no matter what, even if I was in the United States and Hong Kong had car rentals before, there is one thing that I am not used to in Australia, which is roundabout, which is what we call roundabouts, especially, maybe. People who drive in the United States prefer to use four-way stops, but on this side, that is, in Australia, there are more roundabout, that is, there are roundabouts and roundabouts. There are two things above the roundabout. The one I want to mention is, in fact, you have returned to the boat and you are sitting in a roundabout. In fact, you should turn on the light and have a signal for others to listen. After all, what are you doing at home? For example, when an orange car arrives, I turn on the right light at the beginning to let everyone listen. I will take the third exit, but everyone will meet me, right? They might not take the third exit. They could make a U-turn. At the roundabout, they might switch signals to show the next exit. Practice this. In Hong Kong, the first come, first served rule is common. Here, check right for cars. If a car is coming from the right, it might be faster, so stop and let it go first. This is typical in roundabouts. New drivers often get honked at. Keep this in mind. Don't use your phone while driving. It's stated that learners and P1 and P2 drivers shouldn't use phones. Follow the rule. First come, first served. When one arrives, the other goes first. In fact, there is something different here. Usually you will look to the right. Is there a car on the right? Well, actually, to a certain extent, you can tell me if you see a car coming to your right. Okay, there may be a chance. Please be generous. In fact, the habit here is usually to stop and let the car on the right go ahead. This is a ferry crossing, and even this is a somewhat satisfying experience. A lot of times, friends who might not be familiar with driving here often find themselves getting honked at by other drivers when they first start out. So, it's something to keep in mind. Also, when driving, you shouldn't be using your phone or any other smart devices. You will see that it's clearly stated that learners and P1 and P2 drivers should never be using their phones while driving. So, even though the rules are there, it's important to follow them. Definitely, if you are full. If you have a license, it means that you can use it at that mount or stand, but in fact, you must see that there are actually many lenses that are the best, and it is the same as driving. It's safe to drive. In fact, it's not easy to hold a smartphone when you're driving the car. So, even with those smart devices, if you really need them, you can stop and deal with them, and it may be much safer. Okay, there is another situation. It is also the first time. Many people may not be used to it, or it is not just the first time. In fact, friends who are used to cars may miss it sometimes. That's right, because, like many friends in Australia want to make arrangements for their children to go to elementary school, middle school, etc. In fact, there are many schools in this country zone, especially if you live in a place like the campus housing area. It will actually be common. In short, it means that you start early, usually at 9:30. The sign is like this, and 8 to 9:30 are the same. From around 2:30 to 4 p.m. in a school zone, the speed limit is 40 kilometers per hour. Once you're out of the school zone, you can go back to the regular speed limit, which might be 60 kilometers per hour, like this sign indicates. It's easy to accidentally get caught speeding in these areas, and the penalties for speeding in school zones are usually higher, so you need to be careful. Alright, I'll briefly mention applying for your license. Be careful with your full name entry, especially family and given names. Cultural differences can affect name entry. First names might have 2 or 3 characters, leading to a mistaken middle name. Ensure accuracy to avoid correction hassles. Auto insurance is essential and legally required. There are many options, like roadside assistance. Explore packages for new or used cars. One commonality across places is the words are so, but at this time, there may be local colleagues, and they may have relationships, and they will automatically change the 2 or 3 opinion words you originally used, and the second and third words behind them will become the middle name. You have to pay attention to this. It's best to be firm at the beginning, so as not to make any mistakes, otherwise it will be troublesome if you have to slowly change and authenticate later, so you have to pay attention to this. Okay, if you think about it after buying a car, you actually have auto insurance. Insurance for gas cars is absolutely necessary, yes. In addition to the above regulations, you can actually have many different combinations. That is, some people may like to have roadside assistant. After all, when you buy a new car or buy a used car, there are actually many different packages to pay attention to, so you can spend a little time doing the same thing. But there is one thing that I think a lot of places are very similar. That is, in the past, even in the United States, at this time, people were actually 25 years old or younger. In fact, their insurance premium was more expensive or the deductible was higher. I believe everyone can understand this. According to the above arrangement, this is it. Of course, there are other details, which I would like to continue to share with you, but due to time constraints, I will tell you some of the most essential and important ones here today. If you have any, thanks for sharing. Feel free to leave a comment or PM me so I can respond to everyone. Wishing you all the best with your license applications and drive safely. Okay, thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Andy Wong. I'm one of the few people here in Australia and Hong Kong who is licensed or qualified to help local clients and companies with diversified investments, like my years of experience with US stocks, Australian stocks, SMSFs, ETFs, and so on. I hope to share my investment and life experiences with the Chinese community in Australia and Hong Kong through this YouTube channel. If you're interested in having a one-on-one chat with me, you can book a time through the link below the video or in the channel's content. Schedule a time with me. Thanks for your support. Remember to leave a comment, give a thumbs up, and share. Our teaching share doesn't include any investment advice. So, before you make any decisions, remember to consult the relevant licensed professionals for advice. Thanks a lot.